I would like to welcome you to our first ever video here on Pancake Reviews. Today we are going to be talking about The Angel Next Door Spoils Me Rotten. So this light novel is a fluffy romance that talks about two characters that came together through circumstances that neither of them would have seen coming, and you get to kind of watch their relationship blossom as they find out new things about each other and kind of grow together. In terms of story-wise, this reminds me a lot of Horimiya, at least the early chapters when Miyamura and Hori were really trying to get to know each other and becoming more than friends. So in this, there aren't going to be a lot of spoilers, but I might spoil a little bit of Horimiya here and there. So if you haven't watched Horimiya and you want to watch it without any spoilers, just be warned. So I want to start this off by saying that The Angel Next Door is actually the first light novel that I ever completely finished reading from beginning to end in one day. Now, I do own a few light novels. I own Origaru, I own Classroom of the Elite, I own Bottom Tier Character Tomozaki, but I haven't been able to sit down and read them the whole way through, and I think that's mostly because I watched the anime first and trying to get my head around reading the book after, even though I already know what's going to happen. It's kind of difficult. I'm more of a manga guy, but this intrigued me enough after finding out that we're going to get an anime that I decided I wanted to read the book first. A Heavenly Encounter. Mahiru is a beautiful girl whose classmates all call her an angel. Not only is she a star athlete with perfect grades, she's also drop-dead gorgeous. Amane, an average guy and self-admitted slob, has never thought much of the divine beauty despite attending the same school. Everything changes, however, when he happens to see Mahiru sitting alone in a park during a rainstorm. Thus begins the strange relationship between this incredibly unlikely pair. So that's the little blurb on the back, and that explains the initial reaction to the first chapter. That basically the entire first chapter is their initial meeting. And the thing that this reminded me the most of is Horimiya, how in the first chapter we see Miyamura and Hori meet each other because of an unlikely event. Miyamura finds Hori's little brother, he's hurt, he brings him home, I should say, and then they meet and they get to see these alternate personalities. This is kind of the same way that Mahiru and Amane meet, our two main characters of this story. Amane is walking home from school on a rainy day whenever he looks over into a park near his house and he spots Mahiru sitting alone in the rain on this swing, and he doesn't know why. And the whole reason that he stops to help her isn't because she's beautiful and he wants to make her his. He's just curious as to why she would be sitting out in the rain, completely alone, and looking very sad. So he goes over and he asks her why she's sitting out in the rain, and he can tell that Mahiru is pretty closed off and she's afraid because, to be honest, Amane is a stranger. Now, she does know who Amane is, even though they go to the same school, and you'll find out later that they are neighbors as well. They live right next to each other. But Amane realizes that Mahiru is a little bit closed off and doesn't really want to have anything to do with this conversation and doesn't want to answer him. So instead of pestering her, he basically says, "All right, I'm just going to give you my umbrella," tells her to get home and stay warm. He leaves, and he basically says, "You know what, this is probably the only time I'm ever going to talk to her. This is okay. Don't give me the umbrella back. It'll be fine, and we're going to move on, and we're going to be separate people once again after this one little event. I did this all out of self-satisfaction and bewilderment as to why you were out in the rain alone. Goodbye." You would think that that would be the end of this story. You know, Mahiru, being closed off and the person that she is, wouldn't talk to him again because she doesn't want to. But that is very far from the truth. What ends up happening is Amane doesn't follow his own instructions to Mahiru, and he doesn't warm himself up when he gets home after getting soaking wet because he gave Mahiru his umbrella, and he ends up getting sick. And again, since they're neighbors, whenever Amane's coming home from school that day, he's basically passing out. He somehow found the energy to get through his whole day worth at school, which was a Friday. He just wanted to get through it. He wanted to not go home early, but once he gets home, he basically has no energy left and he's about to pass out. Mahiru, waiting for him to give his umbrella back, sees that he's in such a sad state and decides to come into his apartment and help him while he's very sick because he obviously can't do anything for himself. This is where we get to see a little bit more of Amane's character and who he is as a person, because it delves into his apartment and his living and who he is as a person. We find out in this chapter that Amane is a slob. He lives very dirty, he doesn't clean up for himself, he doesn't know how to cook, he basically lives a very unhealthy lifestyle, whereas Mahiru lives a very healthy lifestyle, takes care of herself even though they both live alone. They are basically opposites. She comes in, she's noticing how dirty he is, how he lives. Basically, she says that she's helping him out of self-satisfaction. She goes over to her apartment, she makes him food, he eats it. Hopefully they feel better. They have a little bit of a conversation about who they are as people, and that's it. We get to see them grow a tiny bit closer, but Amane is confused as to what's going on. He doesn't want the help. He doesn't need the help. He figured he'd be fine by himself. But since he's so sick, he does take it from Mahiru. And then we believe, as the viewers or as the readers, and same as Amane, that this will be the final time that they interact. They had a 1-2 interaction. Amane helped Mahiru, Mahiru helped Amane, and this would be the end of their interactions. Now, this is a little bit different from Horimiya in terms of what I would say, but mostly because we don't see a lot of this with Horimiya. The first 20 chapters zoom by until we get to the confession and the relationship, and that's where most of the anime or the manga takes place, is with them together in a relationship. But what this reminds me of is, if we were watching those first, or reading those first 20 chapters of Horimiya, or I think close to 30 chapters before the confession, if we got to expand on those details and watch them grow closer in a more slow-paced fashion, that's what The Angel Next Door is. And when we move on to the next chapter, and we see that Amane comes home from school, and he's basically eating a Jello, since his entire existence revolves around these pre-made meals from the supermarket and snack foods. Amane walks outside on his balcony and he's eating this supplementary nutritious Jello, and that's his dinner. Mahiru's also out there, and she basically pesters him, and she's like, "That's what you're eating for dinner? If that's what you're eating for dinner, then just wait a second." And he's like, "Well, why are you looking at me like this? Just leave me alone. Let me do my own thing. I'll be fine. I was fine before. I'll be fine afterwards. Just leave me alone." Because Amane doesn't want anything to do with Mahiru, because he doesn't want the attention at school. He wants to be low-key, and he doesn't want people to know that they're friends or that they live next to each other. He doesn't want the extra attention. He doesn't like it. He feels as though it's tiring, and he doesn't want to deal with it. And that's why he doesn't like his best friend's girlfriend and all of this extra stuff. And the side characters are a key player in this story. And we'll talk about his mother and that kind of stuff as well. But basically, this chapter, we get to see Mahiru come over to Amane's apartment with this little container of food, and she basically says, "You know what, you need to live healthier. I made this extra food, I make big portions, I'm gonna throw it away anyways, this is yours." And Amane's like, "Why are you doing this?" And she's like, "Well, just say that it's for self-satisfaction." And basically from chapter to chapter to chapter, we get to see this self-satisfaction kind of build, and until they become actual friends. And I think that this is very interesting. We get to see this super slow build up of their relationship, from whenever they first meet, from in the rain, until the whole way to Christmas, whenever Amane asks her to hang out, and she says yes, turning other guys down to hang out with him. Now, I don't really know where the story is going from here. I know that they're probably going to end up together. There are a lot of portions in the story where we get to see Amane's point of view, how he grew up, the way that he is treated, the way that he wants people to see him, and the things that he wants. But we don't know a whole lot about Mahiru. We can tell that she's very closed off. She has emotional walls, and really the only person that she lets those down with is Amane, but she's still very careful. She lets it down for a little bit, she realizes what she's doing, and then she builds them back up very quickly. But by the end of the first volume, we can tell that they both have feelings for each other. It'll just be, when will someone say something? I'm not going to spoil the whole plot for you. I do kind of want you to be able to experience this story from beginning to end, at least in this first volume yourself if you want to read it. But we do get to meet characters like Amane's mother and his best friend, his best friend's girlfriend. We get to see some of the main key characters in the story. And we get a little bit of backstory as to why Amane lives alone, why he is the way that he is. But I'm sure that as the story goes on into Volume 2 and into Volume 3, we'll get to learn a lot more about these characters and why they act the way that they do. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned Horimiya, and that this reminded me a lot of Horimiya, and I definitely still believe that this is a fluffy, fun, very easy to read romance that if that's something you enjoy, like if you've watched the anime Just Because, or if you've watched or read Horimiya, you've watched or read Toradora, you've watched or read Origaru, you'll probably sit down and you'll really enjoy this story. From beginning to end, I liked watching the very slow build-up. It's a slow burn relationship, but they grow closer and closer and closer, and there weren't any points in the story that I was like, man, this is boring. I don't want to watch this. I don't want to read this. I don't want to see what's happening. It's a very fun and enjoyable story. I'm super excited to read Volume 2. I'm definitely going to be adding that to my bookshelf whenever it comes in. I'm going to be reading it. I'll probably do an impressions of Volume 2 and an impressions of Volume 3 as well, as we await the Volume 4 release in English. I have no idea when it's coming, but there are 5 volumes out now, but only 3 in English, so I just kind of have to sit back and wait. Hopefully it won't take too long, but we'll see. If you have any other light novels, manga, or anime you want to see me do first impressions of, make sure you leave those down in the comment section below as well. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys back here in the next video here on Pancake Reviews. Bye.